Today's episode brought to you by Gnawbone Studios. Show, don't tell.
This is Brad Parks, and you should be watching Crew Reviews.
Hey, boys, let's raise a glass. Brad Parks is in the house.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Gin and tonic, big time.
Very, very pleased. And I don't even know what Mike is drinking there. He's got the little cooler thing. He's not even going to show us.
A little gin and tonic today.
Oh, okay. Hey,
well, I don't know, Brad. I don't know if our audience will know this, but this is your second appearance on our show, although not with us. You did an interview in 2019 with Lori Chandler at VoucherCon, where she asked you a whole bunch of questions, and we got a good taste of your personality by watching Lori interview you. So we said, next time he's got to book him out, he's got to be on our show. And so, so this book right here, Unthinkable. Would you mind giving us and our audience a dazzling overview of what readers will discover as they turn the pages of Unthinkable?
All right. So since this podcast, we're gonna get into things in this podcast. I can tell already. So I'm gonna give you the quasi spoilerish elevator pitch. This only ruins about like a page or two, so it's not a big deal. So
Not a bad.
Unthinkable features Nate Lovejoy, an ordinary stay-at-home dad who is faced with an unthinkable choice. Either he has to allow a series of events that will lead to the death of 1 billion people, or he has to murder his own wife. And that's where and that's actually, I've done this pitch. Like I recently did this pitch on live television in one of these, lovely morning shows with this female host who, as soon as I say that, is suddenly inching away from me in her chair. Like, oh my God, who did we invite on this show? She's got the little earbud going, can we jump to commercial now? Can we get this guy off? So I have to, at this point, for all female viewers or just human viewers out there, I need to specify and qualify that I love my wife very much. I'm not having any problems in my marriage, nor am I trying to work out any deep-seated issues I have toward women. None of that. As a matter of fact, really, how this book began for me is I thought about, and you guys know this because you are deep into the genre and you read a lot and all this kind of stuff. But what really makes a thriller go is stakes, right? Like, what's at stake? What does the hero stand to win? What do they lose? What's going to happen if they cannot save the day? Okay. And so I really started with, okay, what is the worst thing I can think to make this character do? And the first thing that popped into my head was, I'm going to make him kill his wife.
Bank robbery. Oh.
And the reason I thought that is because I actually do love my wife. We have a very loving, wonderful relationship, and therefore killing her is just not something I want to do.
Should we ask her?
Unless she's upstairs right now. It's like,
Brad,
depends on the day.
What if it saved 3 billion people though?
And there's 8 on the planet, so we're good.
Yeah, but the race is going to continue. It's no big deal,
Well, Brad, I love the alternating point of views of the chapter. So you had Nate and Jenny's point of view, but you did first person for Nate and third person for Jenny. And I wondered, did you always plan the story that way, or did it just happen organically? You're like, you know what, I want to be inside his head because it's really me. But yeah,
there are definitely some parts where I can't be in Jenny's head. So that certainly informed that choice. And Jenny needs to be doing some things that are a little mysterious to the reader, of course. The other issue is, I'll just, this is not going to shock you guys, but I'm not that smart. as a reader, right? I'm really not. Like I'm a bad reader. I'm like easily confused. And when I have two first person points of view in a book, I just get baffled. And I start losing track of who's who, and I don't know what I'm reading. And so I just wanted to avoid that and keep it really straightforward for all the readers who are like me. And I think there are a lot of them, of like, okay, this one's first person, this one's third person. You'll never be confused for more than a paragraph or two about who you're reading.
I loved it. I was drawn in. In fact, I even said when I was started reading it, 2 chapters in, not even, and I was sucked into the story, man. You had me, and I loved it.
Yeah,
and it was such a fast read.
Yeah, and to your point, you want people turning the pages forward. You don't want them going backwards.
Right. Okay. Who is this again? That's very well spoken, Sean. I'm gonna steal that line. I want people turning the pages forward.
Well, Chris's question kind of leads into one of my thoughts. Usually, I think of an author as more of a character-driven author or a plot-driven author. Just kind of how I think of a lot of authors. But when I read your work, Brad, I feel like you're really tough to quantify in that regard. And I mean that as a huge compliment. Can you tell us a little bit about your character and story developing process? Because I feel like the plot was so tight, and you could say this is such a plot-driven novel, but the characters are so well developed and so essential to the storytelling process. So is there a lot of homework up front, or are you kind of discovering the characters as you move along through your plot?
Well, first of all, thank you, Sean. That's like very lovely of you, and I appreciate that. I think I sort of came at, my first 6 books were an investigative newspaper reporter who writes about crime in Newark, New Jersey, right? And it was a very character-driven kind of book. But what I found myself gravitating toward both as a reader and as a writer was kind of more plot-driven thriller, high concept, that kind of thing. So I think what I've kind of done over the years is marry the two, in part because I actually really tried to go hardcore on the other side, on the plot-driven side. And I ended up throwing that book away because I did not connect with the protagonist. And if I don't connect with the protagonist, how the hell is the reader going to protect?
Right. Sure.
So I think I've just learned I need and want to do both. So I am, by the way, I'm a pantser, not a plotter. So I have no idea how these books are necessarily going to end when I start.
Oh, wow, dude, that's awesome. Now, after reading this, that's crazy.
But so here's the thing, though. This is what, and now we're going to switch back to the character side, because what that makes you do, and I've had to learn this the hard way, believe me, is you really have to listen to the characters, and you really have to know them. And some of the great twists and some of the really surprising things that happen in this novel come straight from character, come from, man, I'm trying to figure this out, and I'm trying to get to know this character and whatnot. And like, I don't want to get too spoilerish. I know you guys have read it, but like, so for example, I keep asking Jenny, why are you doing that? Jenny, what's up with you? What's going on?
Yeah.
And about a third of the way through the book, she tells me, and I'm like, like I'm the mind blown emoji at that point. Like it ends up being my favorite twist in the whole book. Right. But
yeah, I didn't see that coming. And I was doing, I mean, you wrote it, but I
didn't see it coming either. So there it is.
That's crazy. Because I read it, I was like, oh,
yeah. And I don't actually, want to ruin it. I don't want to ruin it either. But I've gotten some really fun texts from my friends of like, I just got to the end of chapter, holy, all that kind of, and that's fun, man. I mean, and those
because it flips it. It totally flips it,
and those twists. They don't come around that often, right? And so I appreciate, and that it seriously felt anyway totally organic. Like I was following the character, and I was like, okay, this is who she is. So Jenny just let me see if I can find it. Like Jenny kind of in some ways introduced herself to me quite early, and it's fun when a character does this, right? But so I knew that. Nate was, for whatever reason, characters kind of evolve and whatever. Nate was going to be a former college swimmer. And if you've ever met a college swimmer, they're all tall, right? They, swimming is the bigger you are, that, Michael Phelps is like 6'7" or something like that. Yeah. So I made the guy 6'4", and now I'm thinking of his wife. I'm like, well, okay, so she could be like 6 feet tall. And once upon a time, I was a sports writer. And my very first gig in sports writing was covering the Ridgefield High School girls basketball team in my hometown of Ridgefield, Connecticut, which I covered all through high school. But I got to know girls basketball players really well and, admire them. So I'd known some 6 feet tall women, right? So I'm imagining that young woman who I covered now kind of all grown up. So we have this. This is high in chapter 2. So again, I don't think I'm spoiling much here. When you're a 6 foot tall woman and you reach your adult height in the 8th grade, you get used to the stairs, and you either shrink your shoulders, put on flats, and pretend you really couldn't beat the boys at basketball, or you eventually learn to do what Jenny did: carry yourself with pride, wear heels, and kick everyone's ass.
Yeah, love it.
Right. And when okay, so that's the character. That's who she is, right? And now I have to follow through with that, right? I can't then have her be meek or kowtowing to people or just accepting. No, she is absolutely going to take control of her own fate. And that's what she does in this novel.
I found myself a couple times thinking very much as how I interact with my wife, who's always right and usually very even when I want to say she's wrong. I don't mean she has to be all right. She just is.
She just is? Yeah. Okay. So we're married to the same woman, Sean.
Several times all married to the same woman. And I'm saying, you just said that she's the best problem solver you know. Have her help you solve this problem. I'm screaming at him. I'm like, dude, you know her strengths. You just told me her strengths, but that's how we are as husbands. I'm the same exact way. I know it would be very simple to go and ask my wife about something, but by God, I'm going to try it 3 or 4 times
because she's expecting it.
So first of all, Sean, I haven't had a thought probably in about 20 years, I would say, that my wife didn't have first.
Yeah.
So in terms of like having I don't want to give too much away about the plot, but that certainly informs the character of Jenny. And, and then furthermore, my wife is wrong about once every other year, I'd say. I mean, that's an average. And I really hate it when she is. Because first it just screws up the whole dynamic, right? Let's get this straight. I'm the one who's supposed to be wrong, and I am the one, while pig-headed at first, eventually apologizes. This is how our arguments go. It's a thing, right? And then suddenly, when it's not, it's all wrong.
Off, the whole universe is
doing. How the hell are we even supposed to have this fight? We don't even know. So there's definitely a lot of I would say my marriage, but it sounds like everyone's marriage in this book as well.
Well, my life mirrored Nate and Jenny's marriage in a lot of ways. I left medical practice to stay at home with their 2 young boys, and my wife continued on with hers because she's a badass like Jenny. It seemed like Nate his transition was a little smoother than mine, but what did you draw on to capture that family dynamic that appears kind of becoming more and more commonplace nowadays, but historically it really wasn't?
Right. So Mike, I love that you caught on to that because I was a stay-at-home dad myself. Right. And what I really saw, and not to turn this into an extended rant, but when you look at the landscape of how stay-at-home dads are portrayed in media, it's like, here's what I see a lot of. I see a lot of dead moms. So, you're Marlin from Finding Nemo, who is only a dad because mom died. There's a ton of, that's like the whole Disney genre, right? Right. And then you see like weird circumstances, like, Adam Sandler in Big Daddy, the kid is like dumped on his front porch. I think the same thing with 3 Men and a Baby. Isn't the baby like just dropped on the front porch? Or there's the Michael Keaton, Mr. Mom, where he's been fired. Right. And in all 3 of these cases, it's never the guy doing what you did and what I did and what, which is my partner and I started talking about what made the most sense for our family.
Yeah, exactly.
Logistically, financially, emotionally, all this kind of stuff. And we arrived at the decision that, so actually my wife stayed at home with our first kid and I stayed at home with the second, because the variables were different, right? And like, that's what I see couples doing now, is figuring it out, right? And not being bound by the ridiculous traditional Ward, June Cleaver gender roles anymore, but just, making a decision. And I don't see that a lot being reflected in fiction, in film, and anywhere else. So I wanted to have a stay-at-home dad character who was kind of like me. Now, bear in mind, of course, you're seeing him more than 3 years into this thing. So I think a lot of the, let's face it, we all have, I think any stay-at-home parent, regardless of gender, has those adjustments of like, we've had our careers and we've had our times when the office or the whatever was really depending on us, and now all of a sudden we're just doing tummy time. And changing a diaper. And and by the way, those stakes, and I think I have the character reflect this. Actually, I think Jenny says it at some point, like, as if somehow having the complete care and raising and well-being of another human being is not its own crucible, right? I mean, it's a test. Holy crap, is it a test? And I forget whether I used this line, but I often felt like it was like I was taking a final exam every single day and I wasn't going to get the results for 20 years. Right. And so I wanted to just kind of reflect that. And like in any single day, when you're a stay-at-home dad, it's not that bad. Your wife comes home, honey, what'd you do today? Well, we went to the park, like you're like detailing the breakdown of nap time, when it started, when it ended, colors of poop, all this kind of like really
it's very important
stuff.
Yeah. Mine comes home and says, I saved 3 people's lives. What did you do?
I saved dog for a walk. I saved 2 people's lives.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I mean, my line was always, hey, kids are still alive. There we go.
That's a win. That's a win.
Hospital, right?
So I wanted to, I really kind of drew on my own experiences as a stay-at-home dad, and like, Nate has a line kind of very early on in this book of like he calls it something like thankless, monotonous, joyful work.
Yeah.
And that's what it is,
right.
Because it's all those, I mean, anybody who's ever done the job knows it's like really freaking dreary sometimes, but then also incredibly rewarding sometimes.
Right. You end up talking to the drive-through Taco Bell guy because that's your interaction for the day with anybody.
with an adult.
Well, and I was a stay-at-home dad in this like very rural community where, very much still traditional values hold sway. So I wasn't like a stay-at-home dad, I was the stay-at-home dad. Like there I was in the grocery store again with this little girl tucked under my arm, and people are looking at me like,
what's wrong with that boy? Yeah.
What is wrong with that guy? Hey, he got a job. What's his problem anyway? So, and of course you get the like, is it Daddy's day with the children?
Yeah,
and
no,
like, every freaking day is Daddy's goddamn day with the children.
Right. You must be babysitting your kids. Wait a minute.
Oh, no, babysitting
yes, my kids.
I remember when I hated when dads would say, "Oh, we got to babysit my kids." I'm like, dude, what are you talking about?
You're the dad.
I'd be in the grocery store with my 3 kids, and we had 3 under 4 at one time. And my wife and I did the same thing. We've switched roles different times. And right now I'm back at home, but I would walk through the grocery store and you would think that like I was like accomplishing the greatest
Moses,
thing.
You were Moses, happened. Basically. Yes, I know.
And not just men, women were snobbish about it too. They'd be like,
the women are the worst. That's the funny thing. They were far worse with that.
The kids today, I go, I have the kids most of the days, and they'd be like, what? I would never leave my husband with my 3 children.
Well, and this is like look, it's easier to be a guy in this world. Newsflash, right?
Yeah, for sure.
One of the ways, like the grocery store is my favorite example of this, because, okay, you go to the grocery store with those like multiple children and, under the age of whatever, and one of them does what children that age do. They throw a tantrum, right? That's like their job. Huh. And when you're a woman and the kid throws a tantrum, people are looking at you like, would you get your children under control?
Bad mother.
Right? And when you're a guy, they're like, oh, look at that dad. He's trying so hard. Oh, bless his heart.
It's good to be a dude. It's good to be a guy.
Dude, and I can go like all the dance classes, and not that we've been doing dance class since the pandemic hit, but back in the day, like I could just be like, with the makeup and, I could be like, oh, woe is me, I don't know how to put on eyeliner. And I would have a flock of women around me going, oh, I'll do it. And oh, well, let's touch it. Like, it was like, like the L'Oreal counter at Macy's suddenly descends upon my child, and it's like, it's so, and yet if my wife had done the same thing, because my wife does not really put on a lot of makeup. She's not a big, like, they would look at her like, what is her problem?
Failure.
Oh my God, she
doesn't care about her child at all.
Exactly.
I had that. I had that happen, by the way.
We have it easy. Yeah. Oh.
All right. So back to the book. You drop hints early on of what's really happening between Nate and Jenny, and astute readers may pick up on them. Like during I'm not going to say, but there, I know I picked up on it, and I had to reread a passage twice because I was like, oh my gosh, she dropped it in there. So as writers, we want to keep our readers, guessing and engaged. So how do you know the good places in the story to drop those hints that may get an astute reader to go, aha, or do you just drop them and then, count on beta readers or your editors to let you know that they're working or not?
Yeah, Chris, I don't know. Like what, but seriously, that's like that's the sauce, and you're like, okay, maybe it needs a little more pepper. Maybe it needs a little more, maybe it needs a little less. And I think you never know. Right.
Yeah.
Like you just kind of hope that you've done it. So I always want to play fair, right? You don't want the Deus Ex Machina. You don't want the, something completely dropping out of the sky where the reader feels like that is such a cheat, right? Although, frankly, I don't think readers give a hoot that much about that, because I've read some pretty darn successful novels lately that have massive, huge cheats in them. But I can't do that, or I don't feel like that's fair. So I always kind of do want to seed it a little bit. And some of it, seriously, it may be on my part, because again, I'm a pantser, not a plotter. It may be somewhat subconscious that I'm doing it. Like I'm kind of throwing stuff in that I don't know what I'm throwing. Like I'm willing to bet. I'm also dumb enough, going back to the earlier theme, that Chris, that thing you picked up on that made you say, oh, maybe it might have been something I was just completely unwitting about and just put in there. And,
that's good. Then it makes me feel better, because that's shit I do when I
write. Well, another way, this is all about how to quantify Brad Parks. Another way that I found that you were hard to quantify is in specific genre. When you read things that are written about you, I often see you referred to as a mystery writer, and there's a mystery at the heart of Unthinkable, but it propels you to turn the pages like all the other exceptional thrillers. Do you see yourself as a mystery writer or a thriller writer, or has that line blurred as your career progressed, or do you even give a damn?
Well, so Sean, I'll since we've wandered into somewhat informal territory here already, and you guys are drinking, I'm gonna use the Tess Gerritsen line when asked what's the difference between a mystery and a thriller, and she said about $100,000. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
True.
Oh, hang on. I don't know if my Alexa just.
Don't say that.
You
turned mine on.
Hang on. I got.
And he's gone. All right, folks. So Brad Parks, thanks for
She's
coming
not
on.
listening anymore. She can't hear us. So yeah, yes. Going back to if you guys want to cut this really suavely, I'll finish.
It.
No,
we're not cutting it. All right.
No,
so I mean, sorry. I could finish with the takeout line. About $100,000. No, anyway. But so that's obviously there's always the realistic part of what we're doing. I subscribe to the definition that a mystery is about solving a crime and a thriller is about preventing one. And I think most books these days have elements of both.
Yeah.
And the preventing one is, frankly, I just think there's a lot more suspense and a lot more tension, than, when the murderer is right outside the door versus the murder has already happened. And that sense of danger that really keeps us turning the pages is always found on the thrill side and not necessarily found on the mystery side. And this is where, I was talking about stakes before. And, honestly, I think there are a lot of books that fail this test, where when you ask, well, what's at stake if this murder is not solved? And the answer is really nothing. right? Like
right.
the cop is going to go on with his or her life, or the knitting shop owner is still going to open up tomorrow and sell yarn,
Next
or
book.
whatever. Like
Yeah.
and those, that's why those books just don't work a lot of times. And I know there's still a lot of readers who will plow through those books for the puzzle of it, for the mystery of it, all that other stuff. That it just doesn't do it for me anymore. And I think there's a lot of readers out there that'll like me. Yeah.
I think we share on that. On this show, we've had a recent run of newspaper and crime reporters turned exceptionally successful authors.
You have
novels.
Oh, well, shit! And then you invited me,
and then Brad Parks.
It's kind of like a cracker in between the main courses. What did you learn from your days writing for the Ridgefield Press at age 14, all the way through your college newspaper, the Sports Weekly, and then beyond into the top echelon there? What shaped you as an author from those years that you kind of were working that different line of writing?
Well, so I should be clear that the Ridgefield Press, I always say I got into writing for the money and the sex.
Yeah,
and the money was that it would pay 50 cents a column inch, which meant I could make more money writing for the paper than I could babysitting. And the sex was like, okay, it's the girls basketball team. And at this point, to suspend your disbelief, and I know this is a podcast, so readers won't be able to see me, but I was not quite the paragon of strapping malehood at the age of 14 that you see before you now. I was short, I was fat, I had braces, not a lot going for me. But I'm like, if I'm the guy who can put the girls' names in the paper, they'll have to talk to me, and then I'll get dates.
Yeah, right.
This was an important first lesson that not all of my writing goals would be achieved, right?
It's a cruel business.
It is tough, but
rejection filled, right?
It's good to learn young. And yes, I started off with a lot of rejection. There is nothing that publishing can throw at me that the Ridgefield High School girls basketball team hasn't already done. Okay. But that said, I did kind of slowly through the years, I got into it because I fell in love with the girls, but I soon kind of fell in love with the storytelling too. And I think no matter whether you're talking about a high school basketball game or a thriller, there are elements of storytelling that cross over and are the same, no matter what you're talking about. And it's especially with sports writing, everybody knows the final score of the game already. Everybody has the post-game stats. They've seen the little blurbs on Twitter, whatever. Like, as a sports writer, my job was always find a story and then tell a story. And that becomes the muscle. Find a story, tell a story, find a story, tell. Like, you do that every single day you go to the ballpark. And it really develops some good muscles in that area.
Yeah.
The other thing is, it makes you a little bit less precious as a writer, because suddenly, I'll always remember I was going out to cover the Yankees for the first time. Like, I was going to be the lead writer for on the Yankees for the Newark Star Ledger, which is, Chris would know, the largest paper in New Jersey. Yeah. And before I went out, the sports editor sat me down, and I was like, 24 years old, something like that. And he said, young man, you should know you're going to cover the Yankees game, and for every minute now, like with the Yankees result, it's an important story. So they would actually hold editions of the newspaper for that result.
Wow.
Okay. And he said, every minute we have to wait for your story costs $15,000, because there are presses running, there are trucks going, it's overtime, it's Teamsters, it's, all this kind of stuff. And how much do you make a year, young man? It's like, okay, mix it, deliver.
1 minute.
Like, they are going to find themselves another Yankees writer real fast if I can't hit the button. And that knowledge just makes you a little bit less constricted about your own writing. Like, something is going to have to come out.
Yeah.
And man, some nights it's going to be awful, but some nights it's going to be pretty good. Yeah. And you really do, people talk about finding their voice. And that's a great way to find your voice, because you don't even have time to think about all of the things that kind of might normally interfere with your prose. You're just jamming, man, and you're just alive, and it's you and the keyboard and whatever's happening, and you've got 10 different results that are possible because the game is close, and you got to be prepared to write something about all of them. And it's crazy, right? But it really does develop big writing muscles. And I have taken those into writing fiction.
Nice.
And how long did you do that for?
So I was a sports writer until the time I was 30.
16
14
years.
to 30. And yeah, and I did the whole bucket list of the Masters, the World Series, the Super Bowl, everything. I covered it.
Did you ever turn a story in? Did you ever turn a story in 4 minutes early and say you owe me $60,000?
Strangely, it never went the other way like that, Sean. It just never that
one-way door.
Yeah, exactly. Smart thing to do. But yeah, I mean, it was a great experience, obviously.
Yeah,
that's awesome. But so climate change. Talking about another topic. It's an important plot.
Just trying to get me in trouble, Chris.
Yeah, I know. So,
tell us what your opinion is.
So seriously, it's an important plot within the story, and you make a point in the acknowledgments that you tried very hard to avoid and not promote a particular opinion or viewpoint. Was that because you were afraid you might turn off some of your readers by including that storyline, or was it more than it's too complex an issue to do justice in a thriller?
No, I think I just wanted, yes, I was looking to head off the really pissed off 1-star Amazon reviews. I'll be honest. Could I just not?
Climate change isn't real.
Yes, exactly. But so what the acknowledgments say is the fact that the planet is warming is not under dispute.
Yeah.
And that is not in any way political to say the planet is warming. That is the thermometer. When 4 of the 5 hottest years on record are the last 5 years, we know, and there's a million other from the Greenland polar ice caps to wherever else. Right. There's a billion signs out there that the planet's getting hotter, and that's simple observation fact. I really do. Now, what you do about that fact, that's politics, right? And that is where I have tried to very much steer clear and allow, and I miss the days when we used to be able to have a robust debate along ideological lines in this country about that sort of thing, because there would have been once upon a time when, and I say this, I grew up Republican, right? So the Republican solution to that is let's let the free market fix it. Let's, make it so that the true costs of carbon are actually incorporated into, all of the, everything we have to deal with. Right. And therefore, if carbon is more expensive, then the, other solutions will be favored. And that would have been the very Republican market-based solution back in the day. And, the Democrats would have said, no, put a hard cap on it, make a law, regulate, right? And we don't even have that conversation.
No,
anymore.
You're evil. Right. You're evil.
Right.
If you're on the other side, you're evil.
You're wrong. You're evil. Good. You're we're not even acknowledging the same set of facts or the same, or the something is a problem.
Right.
Right. And, so I don't know what to do about that, but I do, these are, ultimately these are entertainment. These are not political polemics. And so I just want to make it clear to readers, no matter where they fall on the spectrum of things, that I don't care where that's not what we're doing here. Yeah. We're trying to give you a break from the politics. So merely that I have pointed out that the planet is warmer, I could also have pointed out that the planet is round. And it's basically, it's the same level of fact.
Flat.
What?
God, I'm giving you a 1-star.
Yeah, the flat earthers can go ahead and give me a 1-star. I guess I'll just.
I'm so now going to Amazon and Goodreads, and I'm going to check out your 1-stars to see.
Either that or a late delivery. Yeah.
The funny thing is that will be more controversial than somebody saying, "Hey, Brad, where do you come down on murdering your wife to save her?"
At least it wasn't the pet dog.
Right. Oh, yeah. Hey, what do I look like? An idiot here?
Yeah,
come on. I mean, I have seen some data on my readership, and basically my median reader is a 65-year-old woman. You think I'm killing her dog? No, absolutely not. My God.
Cheers to your career. See you later.
Yeah, right. Yep. Flames shooting everywhere out of what used to be the ashes of my life. Anyhow.
Well, let's talk about your career. So you kicked off your career with a 6-book series before moving to standalones. What creatively drew you away from the series to the standalone, and what sort of do you see as the rewards and drawbacks of either?
Right. So Great question, Sean. You're hitting it out of the park with the questions tonight. I gotta say,
he's been drinking, so it's
somebody. Well, but somebody did his homework though, and I appreciate that. So I think in terms of like what led me away from the standalone. First of all, I never wanted to take Carter Ross, this Newark, New Jersey-based investigative reporter, out of his basic milieu, right? Like because that felt weird and wrong, and yet I found myself wanting to tell other stories, especially since we had. By that point, like I had been in New Jersey when I started writing Carter Ross, and I was very much surrounded by that world. Well, suddenly we're down in Virginia. And by the way, Carter Ross was, while he had some romantic entanglements, basically single, right? No kids.
Yeah.
And suddenly I was very much not single and very much with kids. Yeah. And I don't know, I found myself being drawn towards telling different types of stories and not feeling as much in touch with Carter as I used to. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. And then I've kind of now really gotten to like the standalone. And I'm not saying I'm never going back to Carter. I look forward to doing that someday when it feels right. But like the beauty of a standalone is no one is safe, right? I don't have to save anyone for the next book. I don't have to worry about, frankly, pissing off readers. Like Carter Ross's sidekick best friend is Tommy Hernandez, who's probably half of my readers' favorite characters. And if I kill Tommy, like my email inbox will actually implode, right? From pissed off people. And I don't want to, on some level, you don't piss off your readers, like that's just, you just really don't. That's not what this is all about. And so like, I don't know, like I talk to my characters, right? And I know that sounds goofy, woo-woo, whatever. Not at all. Okay, thank you.
You're among fellow cycles.
You get me. So, I would like, when I was doing a series, like I would, gather the characters in a room and I would be like, everyone, I have some bad news. We're about 40,000 words into this novel right now, and things are feeling a little too safe. And one of you has to die.
Ooh, any
right?
hands?
And when you're having this conversation with all your characters, there's like Carter over in the corner, and he's just kind of got his arms crossed, and he's just kind of smirking at everyone, going, "Sucks to be one of you guys." Like he knows I'm not going to kill him because I have to send my children to college someday, and so
braces.
So yes, braces, all this other kind of stuff, right? So, but in a thriller, like, man, I have definitely killed some characters that at the beginning of the novel, you would think, no way, this person's got to be safe because he can't kill so-and-so.
Right.
And I like that. And, and certainly like this novel relies on the fact that like no one in this novel is safe.
Right.
Truly. And you don't know who's going to get it. And I love that energy. And I love not knowing myself. So that's where, if there is some, every once in a while, admittedly, in the Carter Ross books, I used to get the review that said, well, I knew 50 pages in who the bad guy was. And you know what? They might have. With these books I write now, these standalones, no, sorry, you didn't know. Right. There's just no darn way. It's too darn unpredictable. And I enjoy that. And I think readers do too. I have a saying, readers love to be wrong. Right? They love to be wrong about characters. They love to be wrong about plot. They love to be wrong about everything. And so I want to give them that opportunity as much as possible.
What's crazy is we had that exact same meeting, and we used to have 7 crew members, and we had the same meeting. Show's been way better.
Season 3's coming up. There's got to be one of us.
Sorry, one of you. Look, what you do for the podcast ratings. I mean,
whatever it takes.
You guys dying for your art. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, in this book, Unthinkable, you have a 99-year-old visionary who sees into the future. Did you do some research on this for the book? And did you come across anything that made you kind of stop and consider the possibility, or anything that kind of like popped up that was like, whoa, that's a little weird?
First of all, Mike, he's a mere 95. Don't you dare date him.
It feels like 99.
So this was actually my previous novel, the one before this, is called Interference, and it deals with some of the mysteries of quantum physics and whatnot.
Right.
And I tripped across this really fascinating, sometimes you just bump across something and you store it in your head. Did you know that the laws of physics work whether time is traveling forwards or backwards?
Or backwards, yep.
Like the laws of physics don't care. Furthermore, there is this little elemental particle called a positron. And there's a theory out there. Richard Feynman has proposed it, although he, I think, kind of semi-ripped it off from somebody else, but whatever, that a positron is actually an electron moving backwards in time, right? Yeah. And is it like, whoa, mind-blowing, right? Now, that's never been proven, but it's also never been disproven. And frankly, the math works either way, right? Right. And so I love this idea of like this matter constantly flowing at us from the future. And what if, there's always got to be a what if in the thriller. Sure. What if there could be, just as 500 million years ago, there evolved the first being on this planet that could sense photons, and that's, i.e. light, i.e. that's what our eyes are today. Yeah. What if there was evolving in human being the ability to sense this matter coming from the future, to make some heads or tails of it, to be able to understand it in some way? Right. And so, I just I geeked out on the science a little bit, but
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, but it's fun and it's cool, and it's that little head scratcher, because you think about throughout history, we have always had prophets and people who claim to be able to see the future. Right. And depending on who you were when you claimed to have a prophecy, you were either, probably if you were a male of the dominant culture of the time, you were hailed as a prophet and they wrote books about you. If you were a woman in Salem, Massachusetts, they burned you at the stake, right? But, in particular, Vanslo Degan, she was this 95-year-old character, comes from the Romani community. This is a group that derisively used to be referred to as gypsies, where there is a strong tradition of prophecy. And what if there was a reason for that, like that this gene, because if it's evolving, right, it has to be in our genes somewhere, is being passed among this very tightly knit community, and that this is real, like the fortune telling, that like the being able to see and connect with the future is actually, there's something really going on here. And so that becomes Vanslo Degan. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
We're going to scroll across the winning Powerball numbers here.
Hey, so Brad, why Tuesday? Why Omaha?
Yeah, I guess Omaha because I've been watching a lot of Peyton Manning. Omaha. I don't know.
I'll raise a glass to that.
There you go. So yes, there is. For those who read the book will get that. I don't know, like, because Tuesday is like, isn't Tuesday just, it's Tuesday.
It'll be Omaha. And I love Omaha. All right. So you got the series, you got the standalone. Can you give us a little peek of what's coming next? Like, what do you have on?
My elevator pitch is not awesome for this yet, but basically involves a heretofore undiscovered hominin species. So they're Homo, like us, but they're not quite us, right? That have been discovered kind of hiding in plain sight on this remote Pacific island. And the team of anthropologists that has gone in to study them has disappeared. I like it. And now we have the next team coming in, an anthropologist who is heading up a team that includes 4 special forces soldiers, of course. Nice. And what could possibly go wrong to have an anthropologist, 4 trained killers, and an island full of human but not quite human species? I mean, like nothing could go wrong. Everything is clearly going to go to plan, and they will live happily ever after.
Sounds like Predator times 2.
Basically, there's some Predator, there's some Wasp, there's there's things moving in the bushes. We don't know what they are.
It's Predator meets Lost. I like it.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
But then there's also like this spy thriller element to it, and it all kind of like collapses in.
Love it.
And it dealing with Ukraine of all things.
What?
So it's what exactly? I just flew his mind. There it is. So somehow we link Ukraine to the Western Pacific, and it's
an experimental.
I can at least though understand why it's hard to get that down to an elevator pitch.
It's a freaking mess.
But it's a damn good one. I mean,
I gotta say, Sean Cosby came on, and when he was telling, we told him to give us an elevator pitch for Razor Blade Tears, and at the very end he goes, and it's got a wood chipper. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. You go Ukraine. I'm like, I don't know how that fits. But listen, Brad, you have survived the traditional portion of our interview, so we're going to raise a glass.
Yeah.
All right, thank you
for that.
He survived that part,
gentlemen.
And next, you are entering the lightning round, where we're going to ask you stupid questions, and hopefully you give us stupid answers.
Hold on, was I supposed to get a briefing on this ahead of time? Or something
No,
like that?
you do not want to know about this ahead of time.
Okay,
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
No. The less you know, the better. But
Right,
I'm going to preface I'm going to start off with. So the three of us, we're going to ask you each three questions.
Mm-hmm.
But can you predict who's going to ask the first question?
No, because I'm not Vanslo DeGange, and I am not in touch with this. So I was going to say Sean. It was Sean.
No, it's not.
Nope.
You're wrong. Sorry. And folks, that's the end of the show. Thank you for
Also, why, like if I give you Powerball numbers, don't go out and play.
Kind of half right though, because Chris said we were going to ask stupid questions, and I promise mine are the dumbest.
Yes, I did read them. They are particularly stupid, but
Not bad.
All right. I'm going to go first.
All right.
So here's my first question.
Yeah.
In your acknowledgments, do you refer to yourself, or why do you refer to yourself in the third person as the author? And please tell me it's because you're playing homage to the maestro on Seinfeld.
I am not.
Damn it.
I think okay. So basically, yes, the author acknowledges that after reading this novel, some people might assume he has deep-seated issues with his wife, Melissa, that he felt the need to work out in his prose. He does not. So when you write that, like suddenly you're just kind of trapped into that device. And also, let's be clear.
So
I'm a slave to the device, man. Now I've got to keep going.
You got to follow the plan.
Also, I wrote these acknowledgments pretty early on in the pandemic, and it was that point where like everybody had been Zoom schooling for a while, and as an author, like I'm used to this beautiful day that I have, right? Because I'm a full-time author. This is all I do. I have no other marketable skills, and basically everybody in my house leaves.
Yeah, it's quiet.
It's wonderful. I have the whole place to myself for hours on end.
No pants, no nothing.
Whatever. Nothing.
Pants.
Doesn't matter. And then suddenly they were just there all the friggin' time. And I think I wrote these acknowledgments with like, there was some Khan Academy going on in the next room. There was a Zoom there. Somebody was crying, I'm sure. So, at that point you just kind of like, okay, I've got this device. I've got to keep going. And then I've got to hit the button because, I'm down to, one pair of underwear and I've worn it inside out already. And I really need to do some laundry. So that's it. It actually,
I read that and I was just like, what was going through his head? But obviously now I know.
So yes, what was going through my head is, oh shit, I'm out of underwear.
All right.
We finally got the answer.
Here's my next question. It's kind of a two-parter. First part of it is, have you ever been to a fortune teller?
Yes.
Yes. And did he or she, whatever they tell you, come true?
Let's see. I don't remember. That's a horrible, like, I'm trying to think of, like, I can close my eyes and like, it was really, so I was doing a story for a paper I was working at the time. And I forget why this became a thing I had to do, but like I interviewed this fortune teller. I think like some local zoning ordinance was trying to kick them out or something like that. I mean, it was something really goofy like that. And it was, so actually the best part of the whole experience, and this is the only thing I remember, is that I then had to expense having my palm read on $5 report. And no, it was more than that. It was like a good 25. I mean, so this was in New Jersey, Chris. I think it was a town that was trying to like just get rid of all of its, mystics and fortune tellers.
Didn't they have seen that coming?
South Plainfield.
Yeah, the rent alone in New Jersey, you're doing $25 for a palm reading at least, right? So that's all I remember about, like, the look my boss was giving me, like, I expensed it. Come on, I had to do it. And it was in the line, and so I'm like,
okay, that's all right. All right, my last question. It's yes or no. Are lawyers mostly good or mostly bad? It's not yes or no. It's either or.
See, I'm gonna fall on mostly good. Like I used to cover cops and courts, and as a reporter, and the number of honorable, decent lawyers on both sides of the aisle far outweigh the scumbags, frankly. And
scumbags just do so much that they bring so much attention to themselves.
Say again.
The scumbags just do so much that
and I don't like. I think most lawyers take very seriously that they have taken an oath, to the bar and to uphold the law and view themselves as officers of the court. And I've just witnessed multiple occasions where, like, say, a prosecutor will, and they're required to, but something about like the way they do it, like we'll hand over exculpatory evidence to the defense and make sure the defense sees, hey, you need to be aware of this. And then, but I've seen the other side too, where the defense kind of is like, realizing that, the person they are defending, while still entitled to a fair defense, is highly culpable. And that therefore, that it's being good is being done for society to actually lock this person up. Right.
Yeah, there it is. Brad loves lawyers.
I love me some lawyers. I'll live with that.
There's going to be a 1-star review from somebody who had a bad experience with a lawyer.
Some of you just got divorced and be like, no, they're all scum.
I hate this guy. All right. Well, you may only be the 4th Brad to appear on the show. However, you were the only, and I underline only, author to win the Seamus, the Nero, and the Lefty Awards, which is amazing.
Yes.
But what non-writing award would you most want to win, and why?
I would want to win the MacArthur Genius Fellowship. That way, anytime somebody says, Brad, you're kind of a moron, I'd be like, nope. It says here, I'm a genius. Boom! Deal with it.
Excellent. Okay, this is where I'm going to go a little off the rails. If there were a series of Brad Parks designated by the U.S. Department of Interior, what wildlife or geographic features would the Brad Parks include?
So, my favorite novel as a young man, like this is the book that made me want to become a writer, that made me fall in love with reading. And this is getting really cheesy and emotional, but Gentle Ben by Walt Morey, the story of a young boy from Alaska who befriends a grizzly bear as a friend and pet. So Brad Parks is going to be in Alaska, and it will be a friendly home to all the bears.
It's going to trigger Sean.
Sean is a professional bear wrestler.
I thought you were going to say Sean was a bear. In which case,
he wrestled bears.
Sean got his ass kicked by a 400-pound black bear at a boat sport and travel show. But that's a whole nother.
Yeah, but a few more bourbons and tell me that story.
It'll come better.
Yeah.
But no, I love bear. I actually love bear. So that you hit me in the heart.
So I recently heard on the radio this piece about like a really disturbing thing that Americans have. Like we're so deluded. They were asking Americans.
Yeah.
Could you?
I posted it.
Oh, did you post that? Could you beat the following animal barehanded in a fight?
Yeah.
And like 8% of Americans think they can beat an elephant in a fight.
Crocodiles.
What's wrong with you people? 14%
Silverback.
think they can take the crocodile. I'm sorry, there's just nothing left of
you. My question was, well, it was a difference between Americans and Brits, and it was like, and I was like, I saw there was a difference in Americans, their confidence 50%. In fighting a goose, and Brits fighting a goose. And then Brad, I think you and a couple other people are like, well, fuck that. Like, what about the people who think they're like crocodiles and
the
bears and lions?
Whatever. I mean, it's just, the lion. Yeah, you're going to beat a lion with your bare hands. Yeah. Right.
Good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, this is why you are aware that our species almost became extinct multiple times in its existence, right? Back when we were still trying to do this with our bare hands, it didn't work out well.
Idiots.
Yeah. So Sean, it's okay. Like losing to the bear.
Oh no! I didn't expect to win. I was just trying to $25,000. Didn't work out.
But the elephant, kick the elephant's ass. Like 15,000 pounds for crying out loud.
Okay. My last question. You started a newspaper at Dartmouth.
Mm-hmm.
So you seem to have an entrepreneurial spirit somewhere locked inside, Brad. Did you ever consider a valet service called Brad Parks?
Yes, actually, if book sales don't do well, Sean, I've got the LLC all ready to go, and we're gonna
take over the Bellagio.
Yeah. Exactly.
We will promote the hell out of you. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'm over it. And we'll be like buffing the cars with the diapers while people are gone, just to, for that extra tip and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It'll be like, trust your car to any other service? Unthinkable.
I now have my marketing director, Sean. This is great. What are you doing after the show?
Start drinking and things start happening.
We're good.
All right. So a real life friend of yours ended up in the book as an alcoholic, then he died. So with that in mind, any suggestions on how I snuff out Sean and Chris in my next novel?
So yes, for those who don't know, there is Marcus Saki is a friend of mine. He actually really helped me with the brainstorming of this novel, and actually encouraged me to do a fairly major rewrite of some parts. And I thanked him the only true way a thriller writer knows how, which is, yes, I made him a character, and he's a degenerate, stumbling drunk who dies a painful death. So, Mike, I would start just really researching, wonderful, slow ways to die.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot out there.
Well, at least, the TV show 1,000 Ways to Die is a good start. So
hit and run.
Yeah, but these guys as alcoholics, the people would be a little too close to home. So, all right, here we go. Number 2, if I had to go to Hardee's and order the Brad Parks special, what goes into the bag?
So let's be clear.
Okay.
If I do enjoy Hardee's food. If I actually ate Hardee's before I started writing, I would be asleep on my keyboard every day. So really, the Brad Parks special, man, it's a cold Coke Zero. That's it.
Many of those, huh?
Actually, yeah. So actually, it wouldn't be it would be the little drink holder crate. Yeah. And there would be 4 of them, the big ones that are like roughly the size of trash cans.
Yeah.
And that's the Brad Parks special.
Oh, okay.
And you guzzle 4 of those and you kind of start shaking like an 80s hair band drummer. Yeah. And then you'll understand my prose better.
There's also a catheter that comes inside too.
Well, there's a reason why I always sat the closest place to the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they didn't know that was not a mistake.
All right. Last question of the day. Who is the greatest acapella singing group of all time?
Oh, that's so hard.
Mm.
I have to go. I'm gonna say Pentatonics. They're
so
good. Yeah, they're pretty tough. Straight No Chaser is awfully good too.
Yeah.
Hey, Brad, little tit. My brother wrote a song on their Christmas album last year.
Get out!
Yeah, he's an IU grad as well, and he knew a couple of the guys. He actually produced 2 of their solo albums. And
wow,
they wrote a song on their Christmas album last year.
I'm now starstruck by Sean, and that is not something I ever thought would happen.
Sean, say your brother's name. Like say your brother's name.
Give him a shout out.
Yeah.
His name is Joe Cameron, and the song is "What Christmas Means" off the Social Christmasing album of Straight No Chaser.
There you go.
I can't believe I recalled all that, to be honest.
The more you know.
You're an outstanding brother, and I'm starstruck by you just by association.
Yeah.
There we have it.
And folks, that's how we end it with Brad Parks being starstruck.
He lived through this whole thing.
He did. He survived. Let's raise a glass
and raise a book.
Unthinkable. Fantastic story.
This is a hell of a book, Brad.
That was a lot of fun to read.
Really a great
Appreciate
book. Dude, I was hooked. Loved it, brother. Thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
We're ready.
Hey, boys. Brad Parks on the show. His book, Unthinkable.
Yes.
It was fantastic. That guy has a ton of energy, more energy than you, me, or him. I don't know who him is, but we'll go with it.
You're looking
anyway, let's raise a glass and thank Brad Parks for coming on the show.
Ooh, yeah. Good book.
Yes, sir.
The Grizzly Bears, Brad Parks.
Cheers.
Yeah, tell us now. What about Shauna?
Of course it can happen, Chris.
Oh, you spotlighted me, so I'm not saying shit.
Everything's with Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes,
here
ma'am.
we are. This is the outro for Brad Parks. And maybe he makes page 137, people. I don't know. You're going to have to just read it and find out. But let's find out what he has to say about it.
Oh, there's going to be another book, too.
3,
Oh, my gosh. I don't even tell you.
2, and no.
I'm not ready yet. I'm still looking at page 137. His page 137 is...
Me.
No, his page 137 has like no words on it. So there you go.
Oh,
yeah. He kept saying things that like made me think of jokes like every single time.
All right. I don't know what I'm saying, but let's.
All right. Before the house is burned down by unsupervised children, let's get.
I'm the one who says hurry up, and then I'm a dummy.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Ready?
3, 2, and game.